So hello ladies and gentlemen, I am back again with a new video, and today's video is all about what really is uh, mastering the pattern recognition. So before deep dive into it, let's have some water, okay? So it's a hidden superpower, and we will talking about the how to master the pattern recognition. So before uh, jumping into the title, the speech, let's talk something about pattern recognition. It is one of the most important skill, which is which is used in huge range of uh, our or life. Like we have talked about different thinking, the decision thinking, the logical thinking, the critical thinking, everything we have talked about at least all type of thinking, the skills that a person should have. So the pattern recognition is that one which makes a person uh, like a be powerful. It gives us hidden superpower to the man who has the skill of pattern recognition. So leaving all that, let's start formally. So, good morning, everyone. Let me begin with a simple scene. A young intern joins a company. In the first week, in the first few weeks, everything feels chaotic. Emails are everywhere and meetings feels random. Clients complaints and deadlines moves. Nothing makes sense. But after 3 months, something changes. So what is happening really here is there is a company and everything is not in systems. Everything is chaotic. Emails are not being managed properly and meetings are also not planned. It has no any meaning for the company. It's so random and so chaotic that the person in the meeting doesn't know what is the meeting about, what is the conclusion of this meeting, and the customers, the clients of that company were complaining because of the poor systems they are having in this company. They are not providing better services, and the deadlines were moving. They were crossing their deadlines, and nothing makes sense. But after realizing something changes, the intern start noticing something interesting. So every time a project fails, it follows the same sequence: unclear instruction, last minute rush, and a blame game. So the intern was so shocked about this system of this company, the company where he was interned. So he didn't like he didn't mix in that company culture, but he think and he found a pattern. Like it all starts from the unclear instruction. There were no any system or no any fixed role for a person to do in the company. That was the first step, unclear instruction. And the next one is last minute rush. Like they are not for consistent enough. They are just waiting till the last deadline comes, and they are rushing in the deadlines, and that's the reason why they are over they are going over the deadline. They had crossed the deadline, and at last, as everywhere happens, there is a blame game. Like the clients is blaming The manager is blaming the officers, the officers is blaming the managers, and each others are blamed by each other. That's what one is blamed by the other. That's the blame game happening at last. And after doing the blame game, there is no any improvement. They are not taking any feedback from it, and the loop continues and continues. Loops. Every time a project succeeds, it follows another sequence. So it is not only about they only cross the deadline. They sometimes have success, and when the project succeeds, there is a pattern too that the intern noticed. Like there is a clear brief, weekly follow up, and the clear responsibility. So, just opposite to the instruction, unclear instruction, here there is a clear brief what person will do what. And the next one is not there is they are not waiting for the last minute rush. They are doing the weekly follow up. They are checking each other's work, and there is the sheer responsibility. Not only there is a blame game, sometimes they are coordinating with each other and having the sheer responsibility. They are responsible for their work that they have been assigned for. So, nothing magical changed. The interns simply recognized the pattern, and that recognition changed everything. Today, we are going to talk about one of the most powerful skills you have developed, that is pattern recognition. It is invisible engine behind intelligence, and it is the quiet skills behind success. I think you get the point. It is one of the most important skills that we have talked about. It is not a standalone skills. It is the base for almost every skills that you will learn. So that's the thing about the pattern recognition. It's about questioning. When people have this type of skills like pattern recognition skills, they can ask the better question. Not only the question, but the better question, because they has the pattern. So, and it is something every students and working professionals can strengthen. So this skill can be learned, not today, not tomorrow, but with time. This can be learned. So why pattern recognition matters? Let me ask you something. How many times have you said, this always happens to me? Why does this keep repeating? I knew this will happen. So, so there is always the question roaming around the person heads, like they are blaming themselves, like they are not accepting the problem that occurs in their life. They're always saying this always happens to me. Why does this keep repeating? Because they are not seeing the pattern. Why is it happening repeatedly? They haven't seen any problem. Get a pattern. And sometimes they knew that this will happen, but they are not acting. They knew that this will happen because they experienced the same pattern loop again and again. So, this is pattern recognition trying to wake up. Life runs in patterns. Your habits follow patterns. Your relationships follow patterns. Markets follow patterns. Exams follow patterns. Even your emotion follow patterns. There is nothing in the world that doesn't follow the pattern. So think about it. The difference between struggling and the improving often depends on one thing. Do you see the pattern, or do you just react to the events? So, the only thing I used to talk in every speech that I have given till today is we have we must have the skills to ask the better question. I've always told you it's very important to ask the better question, not only the question, the better question. And to convert the question to a better question, we have to know the pattern. This is the ultimate solutions to make the question a better question. And a person should not be reactive. A person should be responsive. They have to ask the question, they have to see the patterns and only answers to the events. Then you must not react to the things instantly. So when you recognize pattern, you predict outcomes, you prepare better, and you reduce mistakes, and you make smart decisions too. So pattern recognition turns experience into advantage. That's it. So what is pattern recognition really? Let us simplify this. Pattern recognition is the ability to identify repeated structure, behavior, or outcomes over time. I think this is a little bit academic type of definition of pattern recognition, but it's the structure behavior, the structure outcome that repeats over time. That's the thing. It is not just it's not just for mathematician or scientist. Don't have that concept that this pattern recognition is too hard and it is only for the high IQ person. No, it's not only for the mathematician or the scientist, it's for the general public. All should have the skills of seeing the pattern in anything. Because nowadays it is also used by doctors diagnosing symptoms. Because if a person have some problem in their health, that also follows the patterns. The investors use the pattern to read the market. Teachers use the patterns to understand students' behavior. So does the managers use patterns to predict team performance. And finally, the students use patterns to guess the exam, to guess the exam papers, and to prepare for exams. So it is the brain's natural ability to connect thoughts. But here's a catch. Many people experience pattern, few people analyze them, and that makes all difference. So you get the pattern. So this, you get the pattern. But have you ever tried to analyze that pattern? So there is a big difference between experiencing a pattern and analyzing the pattern. It's like you know that this is always this is a pattern. No, this always happens. Like when you do not do exercise, you will feel weak, and when you feel weak, you will oh, your mind will be weak, and when your mind will be weak, you will be eating so many junk food, and when junk food is being consumed aggressively, your health will degrade, and when health will degrade, your mind will. That's a loop, but there is no any analysis going behind it. Only few people analyze them and extract the information, the core thing from that pattern. and that's all make the difference. So let's talk about the 5 step framework for pattern recognition. Just like we discussed problem solving with clear steps, let us now structure pattern recognition in a simple framework. Step 1 is to observe without judgment. First step is to observe without judgment. The first step is awareness. Never be reactive. First observe without any biasness. Is to be aware. Most people react emotionally instead of observing objectively. Instead of saying, my boss is unfair, pause and observe. When exactly does conflicts happen? What triggers it? And what are the circumstances? So, observation requires a calm attention. You cannot see patterns in chaos, you see them in reflection. That needs peace mind. That's need a responsive mind, not a reactive mind. So, step two is to collect the repetitive instance. First one is to be aware. The second one is to collect the repetitive instances. One event is an accident. Two events may be coincidence, but three or more events, now you may see a pattern. Start mentally or physically noting when you perform best, when you procrastinate, when conflicts arises, and when projects succeed. Pattern reveals themselves to repetition. That's the thing. You have to write it down or you have to use your mind and save the things there. When you perform best, when you procrastinate, when conflicts arises, when the products succeed. And analyzing patterns have something. So number three is to identify the common trend. Common thread, I mean. Now ask, what is the common in this situation? For example, every time you study late at night, your retention drops. That's an example. Common thread is fatigue. Every time your team fails, communication was unclear. Common thread was lack of clarity. The goal is not to blame. It's not a blame game. The goal is to take the structure, to detect that common thread from the pattern. That's the thing. Step one was to be aware. Step two was to collect the things, to write down the patterns that were happening to you again and again. Number three is to find the common thread, to find that one thing that is triggering everything around it. Step four is to test the pattern. Now test your hypothesis. You know that this is the common thread that is causing the pattern to repeat. Now test it. If you believe starting early works better, try it consistently for 2 weeks. If you believe weekly meetings improve the team performance, implement that. Pattern recognition becomes powerful when tested. So, everything that is very nice is to make into action. Never limit yourself to a planning phase or a writing phase. That will not work. It's like you have all the things uh, like the fruits, the healthy vegetables, and the proteinous things, nutritious food in front of you, but they are all uncooked. And later, you find yourself lazy to make that food, and you order from the Blinkit or you order from Patao or fast uh, any food ordering app and you buy the junk food. That's like that. You have all the planning, you have all set what to eat today, the healthy things. But later, when you have to do the action, you are not doing it, you are procrastinating. And that don't make any sense of doing arranging all that healthy foods if you don't have if you don't eat them. No any sense. It's spaceless. So pattern recognition becomes powerful when tested. Testing converts assumptions into knowledge. That's the thing. Well, when the planning phase, everything is based on the assumption. This might happen. This is the common trait. These are the assumptions, by the way. But testing converts that assumptions into knowledge, the concrete one. So the step five is to adjust and optimize. So let's recall the first step one is to be aware. Step two was to write down the repetitive action that is happening to you more than 3 or 4 times. And number three was to uh, finding the common thread. What exactly is common in this repetitive action? Number four was to test it. Test your assumptions. Number five is to adjust and optimize. Once confirm optimize your behavior, pattern allows you to move from reactive living to strategic living. You, you stop being surprised and you start being strategic. You start being prepared. Now let us see how this applies in real life. Let's talk about the academic performance. Before this, let's have some water. Imagine a student who performs consistently, sometimes high marks, sometimes disappointing results. Instead of labeling himself as inconsistent, he observes. He notices when he practices past paper, he performs well. He performs well. But when he only reads notes, performance drops. There is a pattern. Active practice improves performance. And there is a pattern. Active practice improves performance. Passive reading reduces retention. Now he restructured his study approach. Result stable improvement. The success was not accidental, it was pattern based because he knew the pattern, he analyzed it. So that's the thing. And he had tested that pattern. You know, he has followed all the 5 steps that I have talked about. Like, first one was to be aware, responding. He didn't label him as inconsistent, he observes. He notices. When he start observing, that was he was being aware. He was not reactive. He was not labeling him as inconsistent. He was responding to that failure, to that inconsistent results. The step one was fulfilled. Next one was to write down physically and mentally the pattern that's repeating again and again. And he did it. And number three was to finding the common thread, and he found it. He analyzed and he found it. Active practice improves performance, and passive reading reduces retention. And number four was to take the action, to test it, and to fulfill the step four, he restructured his study approach, and yeah, that's just it. And the result was stable improvement. He was not inconsistent. He's inconsistently performing. He has a stable performance after realizing that. So it is all about pattern. Now let's talk about the workplace productivity. Now let us shift to a professional environment again. A manager noticed that team morale drops every quarter. Instead of assuming laziness, he observes carefully. He discovers every quarter end workload increases suddenly. Now no one is given clarity and priorities. Feedback is delayed. There is recurring pattern of stress due to the poor planning. He observes. He found out the common thread. So she senses one thing: quarterly workload forecasting with weekly check-ins. Next quarter, productivity stabilized. So it's the another thing like pattern recognition transform leadership. In leadership, a leader have to find patterns of their three problem. What are they? Why are they causing that problem? And by analyzing the thing, they have to adjust. They have to make the team doing the right thing. Here's the thing that is trying to say. All comes from the pattern recognition. Now let's talk about the personal finance. Now it's time to talk about the money. Someone complains, I never have savings. Instead of frustration, they track spending for 3 months. So they notice impulse purchase increases at stressful days. Online shopping spikes late at night. The pattern is emotional spending. Now you understood. A 24-hour purchase rule. Stress management activities. Automatic saving transfer. Result: financial stability improves. Money was not the problem. Let's understand it. Money was not the problem. The behavior pattern was the real thing, was the real problem, was a real common thread. So now let's talk about the common mistakes in pattern recognition. It's time to talk about the errors. Because pattern recognition can also go wrong, sometimes horribly wrong. Number one, seeing patterns that do not exist. Sometimes the brain creates false connection. For example, I wrote this shirt and failed the test. I wore this shirt and I failed the test. I think there is no any connection, no any logic of wearing the one shirt and failing in that test. It's all nonsense pattern that he's recognizing. That is superstition, not pattern recognition. Real patterns are evidence based. Yeah, someone might have that type of thinking, but that's not actually what pattern recognition really means. Real patterns are evidence based. Think about it. Number two is ignoring data that disagrees. If you only notice examples that confirms your belief, you limit growth. True pattern recognition needs honesty. So, never ignore the data that disagrees. Like you want to find the pattern and you found the very best pattern, very best behavior. But there is also another behavior that is attacking it and trying to disprove this pattern. There might be some pattern. I don't have example really now. So The thing is sometimes let's talk about the students, like he failed in one subject, and during the analysis he found that uh, during the during the math test or any test that he has poorly performed, he used to fear about the mathematics. He doesn't want to practice math. That was one pattern that he found. But the other thing was that disagrees was during the math test you find yourself playing games. Like there are the other friends too which do not like math, they don't want to practice math, and because of those friends you are also invited to play free fire or other rpg games, and you don't, and you have one excuse to not practice, is that my friends are all also not practicing, what will happen? So there is another thing. One thing is saying it's all because, like, he doesn't want to practice himself. But the other thing that also may be responsible is that his friends are also not practicing, and those friends are not letting me practice because they are inviting in the online games, and they are playing the games whole night before the math exam. So you have to take everything in account. And number three is overgeneralizing. The number three example is, so one bad experience with colleagues doesn't mean all colleagues are difficult. Pattern requires repetition, not assumptions. So as I already told you, one thing, uh, when certain events happen, one thing, that might be an accident. When it happens twice, that might be coincidence. And when it becomes twice, you started seeing the repetition going on. When it started fourth, fifth, and sixth time, then only you have to think about the pattern. Don't jump directly into the uh, conclusion when something repeats few amounts of time. Don't overgeneralize. Sometimes when you think that this is the pattern but it hasn't repeated a quite much time, that's your assumptions, that's not the repetition. So for the real patterns we require the repetition, not the assumptions. Like I already said, one bad experience with colleagues doesn't mean all colleagues are difficult, all colleagues are like that one bad colleagues. So let's talk about the mindset behind pattern recognition. So it's time to talk about the mental attitude that is required for mental thing like pattern recognition. Number one is curiosity, of course. Ask what is happening repeatedly here. Curiosity opens insights. Number two is to have the emotional detachment. Have remove all your biasness, okay? Remove all your emotional thinking. Strong emotion blurs clarity. Calm reflection sharps insight. So I want to give a small example to it. Like you know that the friends are the reasons that you are failing in the exams. Just because they are the friends, you cannot ignore that data. You cannot say you cannot say that I know that my friends are the reason I know I am failing in the math, but I don't want to take that into account. because they are my friends. No, you have to take that data. That's important pattern. Use that data to find and analyze the pattern. Don't leave the data. They are the strong thing. So I always say strong emotion blurs clarity. Calm reflection sharpens insight. So in that example, the person is not ready to use that pattern. Sorry. Number three is long term thinking. Patterns visible over time, not in a single moments. Pattern is essential. Let me ask you something interactive. Think about one occurring challenges in your life. One awkward challenge in your life. Is there a pattern behind it? Timing, or person involved, or emotional state, or the performance level, or preparation level? If you find the patterns, you find the leverage. So, moving forward with another question, why pattern recognition is a career superpower? In academics, you predict exam structure. In business, you anticipate market shift. In leadership, you understand team behavior. Also, in relationships, you avoid repetitive mistakes. In personal growth, you strengthen productive habits. Pattern, pattern recognition turns experience into intelligence. You have the experience that this is repeating. But after analyzing those problems and following that five steps framework, you can turn that pattern, the experience that you have about the thing into the intelligence. You're gonna use that pattern to make yourself much more stronger than before. And here's something powerful. Experience alone doesn't make someone wise. Analyzed experience does. That's what I am talking about. Now let's talk about actionable takeaways. Let me leave with something practical actions. Number one is to keep reflection journey. Write weekly what worked, what failed, and what's repeated. You will start seeing patterns quickly. Number two is to track metrics. Students try study hours versus performance. Professionals track productivity cycles. Data reveals the truth. Number three is to review monthly. Take 1 hour each month to reflect. Look for habit patterns, communication patterns, and decision patterns. So number four is to learn from others' pattern. It's not about you have to do all the things and you have to only learn from your own mistakes. If you only think about that by learning through your own mistakes, that is a good thing. But you have to, uh, you will spend your whole time learning from the mistakes and never using that learning to do the good things. I think you are getting what I am trying to say. We have to learn from other patterns. Study biographies, study successful projects, study failures. Pattern exist everywhere. Users have that mind to find and to analyze the patterns. Now, let me end with this thought. Life really surprises us without warning. It whispers patterns before it shouts consequences. If you learn to listen, you reduce mistakes. You reduce something, you reduce your reactive mind. You improve faster and you grow smarter. So it's all about the pattern recognition. And we have to know that the pattern recognition is not about predicting the future magically. It's not the astrology. Like the astrologers see your hand and you will be given with the answer that this will be a future. It's not like that. It's not the magic, but it's all about understanding repetition logically. And when you understand repetition, you gain control. So from today, absorb more, react less, reflect deeply, and adjust intelligently. Because the person who sees patterns moves ahead of the person who only sees problems. So, I think you got my point, and never forget to use your mind. It's a very important superpower that you have. So, don't get biased. Have that courage to use that, use every data you have and analyze your patterns. Have the courage to ask yourself the uncomfortable question. So that's it for today, guys. I'll be meeting you in the next one. Till then, I'm Master Bros. Bye. Bye.